All right. Good morning, Helaine. Looks like we got the room opened up everywhere. We're live on both Zoom, live on TikTok, on both places right now. But good
Good
morning.
morning.
Really excited to be here for this edition of today's Trade of the Day Live.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here too. Happy Tuesday.
Yeah, happy Tuesday to you as well, and happy Tuesday to everybody out there tuning in, watching, wherever you may be tuning in from. I know a lot of our regulars are probably in the room right now. See some of you, see Holland, I see Jeff, see Steven, I see FT. Welcome in, everybody. Really excited to have you all here. And let's go ahead and jump right in, Helene. We have, a good bit to talk about today. Some really exciting stuff going on in the markets, and
hmm
just start off where we like to always start off, just kind of overviewing, the markets and the indexes, abroad, just broadly speaking, and looking at a chart, the S&P 500, despite the extreme selling we saw 2 Fridays ago, with kind of the tariff. Spookiness kind of jumping right back to, top of mind, reasserting itself for investors, with trade tensions flaring with China, saw a lot of volatility. We saw the VIX spike. We had a huge spike in the VIX,
hmm
that day and kind of carried throughout last week before ultimately fading in the back half of last week. Stock prices have recovered, and looking at the S&P 500 now, Helene, we are now knocking on the door, literally within just a few points on the S&P 500 of being within that all-time closing high from just about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a quick rally after that dip, I have to say, which is a telltale sign of a bull market.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's just kind of continuing what we've seen much of this year. It's we'll rally, we'll have a dip, we'll have a bit of a risk off day, or several risk off days. Something will kind of spook some folks, cause some profit taking to occur in markets, but then eventually stocks will trade down to support, and it held once again. It held at a very key support level. Where we talked about almost exactly where we need to see support come in, kind of where we had seen a ceiling above stocks, through much of August and September, found support there. It's now rallying again and just kind of back in this rinse and repeat of, rally, dip, rally. And we're still seeing it. And I think there's a lot of reasons for it. We're clearly in a Fed cutting cycle right now. The Fed's made that pretty clear.
hmm
Certainly the uncertainty surrounding not having any fresh data, I think, makes them even more likely to cut. You're looking at the 10-year U.S. Treasury yield. We've been talking about that for weeks here, that's probably one of the most important charts in the market for traders to be watching.
Yes.
Just look today, just before we hopped on, Helene. That is actually on pace. Should it close at the current levels, it is actually below 4% now. It's in the threes, which is fantastic news for stocks.
hmm
But at the current price levels on that chart, that would actually be setting up for a brand new 52-week low close, which is exactly what you want to see if you're a stock investor, if you're a trader trading equities. That's going to be a massive tailwind. So that's continuing to make those lower lows just like we wanted to see.
Yep.
And so, that's obviously going to be huge for stocks. Earnings thus far, they really started big last week. Helene had a lot of the major financials. There were some concerns, in the more regional space around some credit issues, but that seems to have been largely assuaged at this point. People have kind of, pushed that aside, saying, okay, it's more isolated to a couple smaller incidents. There's, no contagion risk. But the major financials, the ones that really drive price action, their earnings were fantastic. Their price response, the price action of stocks has been rather muted, but the earnings themselves were very good. So that's been very supportive for stocks too. They've continued to be good so far this week. We have some big ones coming up. We have Netflix, today after hours. We have Tesla tomorrow. We had GE this morning. So, a lot of earnings, but they're continuing to come in pretty strongly. But Helene, some interesting price action that we saw in today's market. We want to point out before we hop into our trade ideas for today. Really kind of seeing a sentiment shift, in traders. We're seeing, whereas we had a bit of a risk off move, about a week ago, 2 Fridays ago, kind of carried into some volatility last week. I think we're seeing a bit of a reversal in that today, particularly, one trade that you typically don't talk about, precious metals, particularly gold going parabolic, but that's exactly what it had done lately.
Yes.
It's typically more of a safety trade.
hmm
And today you're seeing, the precious metals, gold, the gold miners, they're just absolutely getting hammered today. You can
Oh,
see this
yeah.
chart of GLD, this is the gold ETF, down almost 6%. GDX, the gold miners ETF, was down over 9% last time I checked.
Which is a huge move for that sort of
Massive.
name.
Yeah, it's a massive move. So you're seeing, a risk on move with that. And I think that's even being more confirmed by what's rallying today. So whereas you're seeing the golds of the world, the gold miners, precious metals, things that have, really benefited in the last couple of weeks, they're all getting smoked today, but you're seeing Bitcoin rallying very strongly today. Bitcoin's almost up
Mhm.
3%. See tech is up massively today. You're something else I'm going to talk about next, biotech. The biopharmaceutical area that's rallying, is up big today again also. So, I think you're starting to see a bit of a more shift back to that risk on sentiment. You're seeing volatility fall. The VIX is falling. I think, we were able to shake out some of that concern in the markets that we had last week.
Mhm.
Traders were able to reset and now ready to rally yet again.
Yeah, it seems like whenever you are seeing a surge and a real takeoff in Bitcoin specifically, that tends to be an indicator that people are shifting to risk on. And so, as you said, we're seeing that. And same thing with tech. I mean, a lot of tech, once you start seeing that bullish momentum, that takeoff, and at the same time seeing gold sell off like that, it's telling you that we're risk on. And Blane, we were live yesterday and we were talking about exactly the setup we're seeing for the rest of the year, which is this rally into the end of the year, which we've seen a number of times now. But it looks like things are lining up for that, and today just confirms that at the moment, at least.
Yep, exactly right. Yeah, 100%. And yeah, we're seeing just a lot of signs confirming that. And yeah, as you said, it's a great point to, mention the high correlation between Bitcoin starting to rally and, typically proceeding an up leg, in stocks in the S&P 500. A lot of times Bitcoin will start rallying first. But seeing a lot of really bullish signs in the market today that,
Hmm.
point towards, we're likely to see some continued bullish action, over the next couple weeks, months through the end of the year. So with that, Helene, I'm going to go ahead and start hopping into my trade idea. And
Okay.
so it's something I already kind of touched on. As I mentioned, one space in the market that, despite even some of the recent volatility, this pocket of the market has been just, really, really strongly performing, particularly over the last couple of months. It's one that, had been really not all that exciting for much of the year.
Uh-huh.
Biotech, this is the XBI ETF. It's a biotech ETF right here. Of course, you can see it had a pretty rough start to the year. It, really sold off, continuing a downtrend from the end of last year. Sold off very sharply along with the market earlier this year, during the tariff tantrum, in March and April. But it didn't really recover that quickly. You can see it bounced a little bit, but then it kind of stuck in this consolidation pattern. It slowly started to build some momentum in the early part of summer, making some smaller series of higher highs and higher lows, but it really has seen some momentum pick up in the last couple of months. You can see that this ETF has really taken a leg higher, making some great higher highs and higher lows. It finally made some new 52-week highs, really just a couple weeks ago, earlier this month. So some incredibly bullish signs here from just the sector. Speaking of the biotech, pharma sector from this one. So my trade's not exactly for this, but I just want to show you the really powerful bullish move behind this sector right now. That's really encouraging to see. But my actual trade setup for this one, Helaine, I actually looked through some of the constituents of that ETF, and was looking at some of the pharma stocks that we like to play.
Hmm.
And the reason that this is rallying, one, is because rates are falling. There's more of a risk-on feeling in the market, but particularly, you're starting to see the M&A activity starting to pick up. There's more mergers being approved, more acquisitions being approved. Um, and obviously, that's a major tailwind to this space. That's kind of the lifeblood of the biotech space. You get some of the small mid cap names. They get a good drug that they've developed, but they maybe don't have the horses it takes to get it to market and scale it. So they'll develop it, get bought out by a major player. So that M&A tailwind is what's really driving this space right now. You're starting to see that pick up, and so I think this is a really interesting play because of that right here. This is Jazz Pharmaceuticals, ticker is JAZZ. It's one that we've traded several times over the years. You can see again, it's kind of had some choppy trading this year, but if you just really focus in on just kind of the last 5 months, you can see that it's having a definitive leg higher that it's starting to take. You had a significant trend line buy signal breakout right here in roughly mid-July, had our 21-day EMA pop above the 63-day EMA and continue trading higher from there. It continued to break out to those new higher highs and higher lows, over the several month period there. It still has not broken out to a new 52-week high, but with the very strong momentum behind this stock, it looks like it's very much poised to do that. You can see very powerful trading today. It's near session highs. Looks like it's getting ready. Has all the makings of powering higher, making that new short-term higher high as well, likely in the next couple trading days. But also too, at current prices, even though it's near the intraday high, it's still within our Keltner channel band. So this is offering us a really attractive entry point for a trade on Jazz Pharmaceuticals. And since this is an earlier breakout here, Helaine, this momentum has not been going for months on end or years on end. This is kind of a fresher breakout that we're spotting right here. This is one I actually want to go ahead and target with a directional call option purchase. So I've actually
Okay.
landed on the November 21st option expiration date. And it looks like this one has actually rallied a bit since I found it just a few minutes ago. This was actually down a little bit from here. So this has continued to rally while we've been talking here. But specifically, you see the 125 strike call. You can see where that is in our chart right here. It's a little bit below our lower Keltner channel there. It's a little bit in the money, but I'm going to go ahead and just buy one contract of that right here. It's
I
currently
like it.
trading at 15.1, but I think this one has a lot of momentum behind it. It's likely to keep trading higher from here. So I'm going to go ahead and put that trade on and see if I can get that filled. It looks like it's continuing to rally, so I'll see if I may have to adjust my order a little bit, but that's the trade I found for today.
Awesome, Lane. I love the trade and yeah, healthcare has been one that I have wanted to rally for such a long time. If you guys have been with us here live for a bit, you've heard me harp on this that I have wanted it to really take off. And this is not exactly healthcare, it's along the same lines, but I'm happy to see it starting to really get some momentum there. And I love the trade that you had picked as well for Jazz.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely. It
Oh,
was one that I spotted this morning. I've been keeping an eye on XBI and the biotechs for a while recently, ever since I saw the recent momentum, really strong breakout. So I was excited to spot that opportunity today.
awesome. Now I'm going to jump into my trade of the day. My trade is for CrowdStrike Holdings, and I love this one because of the technicals that I am seeing here. So I'm looking at a technical chart. It is the daily chart for CrowdStrike, and I have a number of moving averages that I personally like to look at. This is the 35-day EMA, the 50-day moving average, and the 200-day moving average. Right now, CrowdStrike is trading above, the daily price is trading above all three of those moving averages. Additionally, we see the 35-day EMA above the 50-day EMA or moving average, and both of those are also above the 200-day moving average. So this is confirming a bull trend for CrowdStrike. And so additionally, I'm also looking at the Keltner channels. So I have the Keltner channels overlaid on this chart here, and currently CrowdStrike is below that upper Keltner channel, meaning that it's currently in the buy zone, which means it's a good time to buy. Now, I will say that CrowdStrike has had its ups and downs. Um, a lot of the charts that you see in the market right now, you see that they had bottomed out in April and then they start this rip, rally higher. And we did see that with CrowdStrike. But the big difference here is that we then saw a trend reversal in July and August, which ended at the beginning of September. Now, beginning of September, we saw the trend reverse again and it started to trade higher. And CrowdStrike tends to be one that once that bull trend starts, we like to continue on that trend. We like to follow that trend because it is one that rips higher. And so I am looking today to take advantage of this bull trend by entering into a call option debit spread. So the trade that I am considering today for CrowdStrike is going to be the November 21st 450 and 460 strike call option spread. And one other thing that I just wanted to note before I jumped off of that daily chart was that their next earnings date is November 25th. So by choosing a spread that expires November 21st, I won't be affected by their upcoming earnings. So it looks like the price of this jumped around a bit. When I was looking at it, this 10-point spread was trading at 8 points even. Right now it's at 840, which is higher than we ideally would like to trade this because we want to get into a 10-point spread at no more than 8 points in order to have a 25% profit potential. So what I'm going to do real quick, I'm going to adjust my spread. I'm going to see if I can get some better pricing by doing a 5-point spread. It looks like it's a little bit better. So I'm going to shift gears and I am actually going to do the November 21st, 455, 460 strike call option spread. It's at 408. Ideally, I'm getting in at 4 points or lower to have a 25% profit potential on this position. But I'll get it in a little bit higher. Max would be 410. That'd be comfortable with. But I'm gonna go ahead and submit a limit order right now. I'm gonna purchase one of the 455, 460 strike call option spread November 21st, as I said, and I'm gonna set a limit order for 405, and I'm just gonna let it sit there. I'll see if I get filled, and if I don't, that's okay. I can always adjust it a little bit higher, but the pricing might just not be there today, which occurs. That's okay. It happens.
Oh yeah, no, that still, if you're talking about just a matter of dollars there, so it's whether it's $8 profit potential difference or not, still looks like a great trade there, Helaine. Really smart too to set it up, to where you're using that November 21st expiration date. They're reporting earnings several days after, so that way you don't have to deal with an earnings surprise between now and option expiration. Should you have to hold it closer till that date. So that's really like the trade. Obviously, CrowdStrike's been one of our favorite stock to trade really over
Yeah.
the past couple of years. That's one that has given us a lot of great entries, a lot of great trades over the years. Continues to do so now. Looks like a great breakout. So great trade find.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Looks like we have a couple of little questions too. Let's
Sure
see.
thing. Yeah, let's go ahead and dive into them. I see Jeff was asking about my Jazz trade setup. He was asking if you typically try and place your buy order at the bid level. So good question there, Jeff. And typically anytime Helaine or I are trading options, we always like to use limit orders. That's
Yeah.
just from the get-go. We personally like to always use limit orders to help us protect against getting bad fills. With using a market order on options, option prices can swing around quite a bit. So we use a limit order, and we typically will set our limit price at the midpoint between that bid and the ask price for that option. So that's
Exactly.
generally where we'll set it at. Now, in today's case, I actually did have to adjust my option order up a little bit. I did have to, adjust it a tad higher than the midpoint just to get that order filled. And, it was about, 30, 40 cent higher on that option, but, pretty minor adjustment. I was able to get that one filled for Jazz. So hope that answers your question for you.
Yeah, limit orders are always the way we go when we are placing an options trade. Ideally, we're picking halfway between the bid and the ask, but limit orders really save you because you could get a bad fill, just depending on what's going on with the option pricing. The pricing changes minute to minute, second to second, and it can have a pretty wide range and swing. And so if you don't set a limit order when you're trading options, you could easily have a winning trade turn into a loser because of a bad fill, which is why limit orders are so important.
Yep, absolutely. 100%. And let's see here. I see another question from Jeff just came in. Or sorry, Holland actually asked a question too, looking at the Jazz trade I had for today. You're talking about the open interest. There were a lower number of open interest for this one. We will look at that, but typically, as long as we see some open interest or volume, it's not one of our main criteria we're looking at. Typically, even if there is a low open interest or volume for an option, as long as the bid ask spread for that specific option is fairly tight, that's generally going to be a pretty good indicator of what the liquidity is for that option. Looking at the Jazz option that I highlighted today, it's actually just a point, so it is fairly tight. Especially given a stock like Jazz that is not like a Tesla or Nvidia that's having tens of millions of shares traded every day. So
Mm.
For a, $8 billion biocap or, biopharma, mid cap type stock, having, roughly a 1 point bid ask spread for its option. That's pretty tight. Generally, as long as we see it within 2.5 points on that bid ask spread, we'll be pretty comfortable trying to get into that trade. We feel confident, we'll be able to get in at a reasonable price, get out at a reasonable price. Hope that helps to answer your question there, Holland.
And for those of you that are just joining in, right now we're opening the floor up to questions. We've gone over our trades of the day, our top picks, and we are answering some questions now about options trading, the stock market, whatever you might have. Go ahead, put it into the chat, put it into the comments, ask your questions as we are opening the floor now to answering those.
Yeah, absolutely. Helaine, let's see. Um, what other questions did we have? Yeah, see, Jeff, you mentioned something about the CrowdStrike bid and ask. Looks like it was about 85 cent. Yep, yeah, definitely why we like to use the limit orders on options for sure. Definitely always like to use those.
So
Um,
it looks like we got a question. Is Tesla a buy?
Interesting. Well,
Interesting.
um,
Okay.
yeah, Helene, do you want to take that one? I know they have
Yeah,
earnings coming up, what, tomorrow? So,
they do. So it's funny that you asked that because before we jumped on this call, we are looking at our trade of the day. I saw the chart for Tesla and I was like, oh, that's a great setup. I'm going to recommend Tesla as my trade of the day. But then I saw earnings. Ah, what, tomorrow's the earnings day, right? And
yep,
I just
tomorrow.
had to steer away. I don't want to take the risk of the swing that could occur from Tesla, having bad earnings. After the earnings date, if they're, don't completely bomb or go through the moon, if it's pretty mellow, I actually would look and consider taking a trade for Tesla because I really do like their setup right now. But I personally won't take on that risk of the earnings going in, just because of Tesla's volatility.
Yeah, particularly, especially given earnings are tomorrow, you don't really have a lot, long leash on that trade. If you're trading a strategy that was more designed around, capitalizing on earnings and some of that volatility, maybe it'd make a little bit more sense. But, it's kind of what we were talking about here today. These are more, directional trades, spread trades that, have, more of a swing type trade hold period. So you're looking at, several days to a week, maybe a little bit more, on some of the spreads, something like that. So, yeah, trying to use a strategy like that on something that is highly likely. I mean, I can't imagine the move that Tesla's probably factoring in tomorrow. I know that one typically
Yeah.
moves a lot on earnings, even though a lot of the numbers are already kind of known. With the auto companies, they're always reporting well ahead of time how many cars they've sold in a quarter and everything like that. So those numbers are already out there. But regardless, Tesla typically moves uh, quite a bit on earnings. It's been a pretty volatile stock over the years. So, yeah, I agree with you, Helena. It's probably one I would probably steer clear of at least until tomorrow after hours once that report comes out.
Well,
See what happens.
Mike commented, he said, I think I'm going to take the risk, unfortunately, but we'll see how it goes. Okay,
Hey,
Mike.
good luck, Mike. Yeah, no, I wish you all the best for sure. No, I hope it works out. Definitely have to tune back in. We'll be back live on Thursday, so you have
Yeah.
to join us back here and let us know. And, hopefully, I hope for you that Tesla's up 20% after earnings. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, you'll have to update us on how it goes. All right. Well, Blane, it looks like that might be it.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
that's all
see
the
any more
questions.
questions or comments or anything.
Yeah, I
So,
don't see any other questions. I did drop a link in the chat, Helene.
okay.
Folks, if you didn't see the link already dropped in there, it's actually it's to my own personal weekly newsletter. It's a video newsletter I put together on the weekends. I sit down over the weekends. I do a lot of research in the markets, very kind of similar to like what we did here today, but I go in even more depth, include a lot more depth about the trades. But it's called my Weekly Profit Opportunity or WPO newsletter. I put it out on Sundays, do this weekly. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find the best looking trade setup for the upcoming week that I think is, one of the best looking trades in the market that I think has the highest, best chance of becoming a profitable trade. Of late, the trades I've been putting out for my members have, been performing very, very well. Helene, I think there was, the run recently was something like 28 out of 29 of the trade ideas I spotted. Gave my members the opportunity at profits on those trades. So
Oh yeah,
it's a
killer.
great deal right now. I
On a
mean,
killer
if you have,
run.
yeah, no, it's been doing really well. I'm really excited I could put those ideas out for the members. But if you haven't checked it out already, you can check out your first month trial period for just $1. So, just a killer good deal on that. So you'll get 4 weeks of my best trade ideas for just $1, for your first month trial. So put that in the chat there. So would love for you all to check that out if you haven't checked it out already.
Awesome. Well, Blaine, I think with that, I think we've answered everyone's questions today. We've shared our two trades of the day, and yeah, I think we got to get back to it, get back to the markets.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot going on, and certainly some more big earnings to come this week. Probably will drive some of the price action. Obviously, the technicals are looking really favorable, but we'll be back here same time on Thursday for Thursday's edition of Trade of the Day Live. So really excited to be here today, but looking forward to get back here later in the week and break down what's happening between now and then. So until then, Helaine, thanks so much. Great job.
Thanks, Blaine. Appreciate it. See you back here.
Yep. See you. Take care, everybody. Have a great week.